First at 5, a crowd cheered today at the spot where George Floyd was killed in Minneapolis after learning new charges will be filed against the officers involved. Minnesota Attorney General Keith Ellison upgraded Officer Derek Chauvin's charges to second-degree murder. He was the officer seen with his knee on Floyd's neck. The other 3 officers are charged with aiding and abetting second-degree murder. All 4 have been fired from the Minneapolis Police Department. That news comes after another night of protests across the country, including an incredible display here in Portland. An estimated crowd of 10,000 people peacefully protested police brutality and racism. They staged a die-in on the Burnside Bridge, lying face down in honor of George Floyd and others killed by police. Then they marched to Pioneer Courthouse Square. A smaller group of several hundred protesters did clash with police later last night near the Justice Center. Police used tear gas and other crowd control measures to try to disperse the group. It was the first night in the past few days without a curfew in place. Mayor Wheeler said he doesn't think it works. Pat Doris looked into the tactics used by officers last night and the response from the mayor and Portland's chief of police.
A 5th night in downtown Portland. After the peaceful protesters left, people began throwing items at police barricades around the Justice Center as the violence took over. Portland Mayor Ted Wheeler today said he watched it unfold last night.
I saw where the pockets of violence were occurring and how our police bureau was responding. It confirmed what I already knew about the minute-to-minute reports I've been getting over the last 5 nights, that our officers are doing everything they can within their power to respect and protect peaceful demonstrators. But they have another job, and that job is to make sure that lives are safe and public safety is protected. That's why we cannot tolerate violence.
Portland police used gas and flashbangs and other tactics to break up the hundreds who refused to leave late into the night. This morning, Police Chief Jamie Resch thanked the peaceful demonstrators who earlier in the night turned out en masse.
I still hear your message, and I know those who are engaging in criminal acts do not represent you. Many others aggressively engaged in acts of violence directed at police overnight. Fireworks, bottles, ball bearings, and other projectiles were thrown at officers throughout the evening. After several hours of dispersal orders, some arrests were made, and the situation calmed down when the rest of the crowd dispersed.
Along the way, police used new tactics, like marking cars they thought were bringing supplies to the violent protesters so they could be safely stopped later. I had a chance to share some of the Sky 8 video with Scott Weingar, a retired Portland police captain who also served in the Oregon National Guard. He remembers policing downtown through at least 30 protests over the years, and while he's probably not exactly unbiased, he does understand tactics. He said last night officers walking in lines showed they were following commands from supervisors and were in control. The police had not lost control of the police force. As for the video showing a police cruiser driving through a barricade put up by protesters,
if that was for some purpose, in other words, to keep that area open and accessible and limit the protesters' ability to control an area, then that seems like a reasonable thing to do as long as nobody was endangered. However, if somebody was endangered or if that wasn't necessary to control an area, then I would question whether or not that was a sound decision.
The police chief said the incident is under investigation. She also called on the larger community to stand up to the violence.
How long can we, as a city, endure the extreme disregard for human life and property demonstrated by a small group of violent individuals? We have to collectively come together to prevent and stop those who are holding our city with violence.
Also today, Gresham Police confirmed that one of their sergeants Sunday night during the protests was hit with a burning projectile that landed on his vest. It did start to burn the vest a little bit, but others were able to put it out apparently, and he was not injured. In Northeast Portland, Pat Doris, KGW News.
And we have some news about the coronavirus pandemic now. This Friday, 31 Oregon counties could enter phase 2 reopening. 29 have already applied. The latest we've just learned is Yamhill County. Multnomah County is the only county that hasn't applied for phase 1 yet. Governor Kate Brown and state health officials laid out the roadmap today. They say will likely be following for months. Galen Etlin has the details.
Oregonians, look out for one another. A call for unity from Governor Brown Wednesday to fight COVID-19 as counties get ready to open further.
I know our economy has taken an extraordinary blow, but let me be clear. This cautious approach is saving lives all across the entire state of Oregon.
This map shows the 28 counties that have applied for Phase 2 in dark blue. 31 that have been in Phase 1 for several weeks are eligible and could begin the shift as early as Friday. Now, Phase 2 would allow expanded hours for bars and restaurants and opening of recreational sports, swimming pools, movie theaters, bowling alleys, and arcades. Faith gatherings could also increase up to 250 people as long as 6 feet of distance can be maintained. But everyone's still encouraged to stay home.
That reopening is not an on-off switch. If we see increased positive tests and other warning signs, then we may need to consider dialing back our permitted activities.
And despite large demonstrations across the state and Portland, Multnomah County still plans for Phase 1 reopening on June 12th, watching out for any spike between now and then.
Bear with us as we may make a difficult decision to postpone if we see activity occurring that we believe it will be harmful for community members.
But Oregon Health Authority says most people are doing the right things.
2 weeks ago, Oregon had the 5th lowest COVID-19 infection rate in the nation. Today, we have the 4th lowest.
And with Phase 2 projected to last into the fall for most Oregon counties, Governor Brown is calling for patience.
People all over the globe now understand that we will continue living with the threat of the virus until there has been a widely available treatment or a vaccine.
And there are 5 new cases of the coronavirus linked to an outbreak at Bob's Red Mill in Milwaukee. The state reports 19 people connected to the mill have tested positive. The first case was reported on May 27th. The company is paying those 19 employees to stay home and self-quarantine. Additional employees that may have been in contact with them were also sent home to quarantine. Oregon Health Authority says the risk to the public is low.